If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Good morning, everybody. Corey used Bloody History. So, we're going to start today on the testimony of Marguerite Oswald. Probably not going to have too many shows this week. I'm in the process of finishing my audiobook, which by the time you hear this should be on Buy Me a Coffee/JFK book for pre-sale. So I've got, 3 chapters left I need to record and 4 chapters total I need to edit. So I've been really knocking it out pretty hard the past couple weeks. And I'm hoping, it's the beginning of the month. I'm hoping to have it up and ready for sale within like 2 to 3 weeks. But the pre-sales are going to be available now if you go and you look at buymeacoffee.com/JFK book. For $20, you can pre-order the audiobook, and with it, you get a copy of the PDF of the book and my A Warning from History note set, all for $20. So that's available right now. And like I said, the audiobook will be emailed to you the day it comes out. So that's that. And let me see what else is going on. I guess that's about it. I got a bunch of things in the works I can't talk about yet. But you'll know soon enough. So let's get on with it. Testimony of Marguerite Oswald. We're going to skip over a lot of the preamble because there's about 2 pages of preamble with this woman, of course. So he asks, who's in charge today? Today we got... It just says the chairman. Looks like Russell is here. I don't know who's going to be asking the questions, but we will get to that. We're going to skip over the preamble where she talks about her lawyer and this and that. All right, I'll pick it up here. In order that you may have full opportunity to testify in your own manner and tell us everything that you know, and particularly because we do not know what you know, I'm going to ask you if you would first like in your own way and in your own time to tell us everything you have concerning this case. Would you like to do that? Yes, Chief Justice Warren, I would like to very much. However, there are 3 things that I have asked that should be brought before the council, 3 requests of mine. One has already been granted, that is, the counsel, Mr. Doyle, and I do appreciate that fact. I've stated publicly that I believe in the American way of life and justice for all men, which is our American way of life. My son, Lee Harvey Oswald, was tried and convicted within a few hours' time without benefit of counsel, and so I am appealing to the board that my son, Lee Harvey Oswald, be represented by counsel. I'm being represented by counsel. My daughter-in-law, Marina, was represented by counsel, and I understand that all other witnesses will have the privilege of being represented by counsel. However, the main object of the commission is Lee Harvey Oswald in the murder of President Kennedy, so I strongly believe that Lee should be represented by counsel. Now, my reasons for wanting this done this way, I will state that Marina has testified. Marina has testified according to the papers, and I'm assuming that this is correct, that Lee wanted to live in Russia and Cuba, and that is why he went to Mexico. I happen to know differently because Marina has told me the first day I was with her, "Mama, I write to Russian consul. I want to go back to Russia. I like America, but Lee no get work." So you see, had a counsel been there in behalf of my son when Marina said that, it doesn't have to be a court trial or cross-examination. All I'm asking is that this man sit quietly, and when he knows different facts, then he could say, "Well, Mrs. Oswald, isn't it true that you wrote the Russian consul yourself wanting to go back to Russia?" And in this way, gentlemen, I believe you would have both sides and a true picture. I cannot see how you can come to a true conclusion by taking individual testimony. Now, I myself am here today to testify. I've been sworn in. But that doesn't mean that I can tell the whole story. I may forget something, and the council would know. We have investigators all over the country. The reporters are interested. I have over 1,500 letters, people expressing their opinion of the way the case is being handled. And believe me, gentlemen, they are not satisfied. I can produce these documents for you. They think, like I think, that the American way of life, both sides should be heard. I don't think that 7 men of this commission can come to a true conclusion. Now, what it will be an analysis of what the FBI and Secret Service and Dallas Police have, mainly speculation and opinion of other people. Now, Mr. Lane has affidavits, I understand, from the same witnesses that have made statements to the Dallas Police which are contrary to those particular statements. I implore you, in the name of justice, to let my son, Lee Harvey Oswald, who's accused of assassinating the president, and the mother of this man, who is the accused's mother, be represented by counsel. We have information pertinent to this case. My daughter-in-law is the only one who has testified. The things that came out in the paper, I know. I have documents. I am asking you to believe me as a mother. I can prove the statements that I say, and I believe in this way that you will have a true picture and a much better picture, because as you are going along, you'll be able to have both sides and won't have to wait to analyze the situation in the end. As the testimony is being given by each individual, right then and there, you will have the other party's testimony. Now there's another. And then Warren says, before you leave that, Mrs. Oswald, I may say to you first that the commission is not here to prosecute your dead son. It is not here, and it was not established to prosecute anyone. It is the purpose and province of the commission to obtain all the facts that it can obtain, and then make an impartial report, not as a prosecutor, but as an impartial commission on the manner in which the president came to his death. We're trying to recognize the individual rights of all persons who are called before the commission, to let them have their lawyers and let their lawyers have an opportunity to examine them, as well as the commission. You may be sure that if Mr. Lane has any evidence of his own knowledge or has any accumulation of affidavits from others to any effect concerning this trial, that he will have an opportunity to come here, just as you are, in order to present those to the commission. But so far as his being here at all times before the commission to cross-examine or be present when all witnesses are testifying, that is not in accordance with the procedures of the commission. But I assure you that if Mr. Lane has evidence of any kind bearing upon the assassination of the president, he will be accorded the same opportunity that you have to come here and present them. And we will give him an opportunity in his own way to tell his story and present his own evidence. And should he want counsel, he may have counsel also. Now you may go on with your second point. No, I'm not finished with my first pleas. I appreciate and I understand exactly what you've told me, Chief Justice Warren. But there's one thing, and of course I will have to accept your decision and will be most happy to have Mr. Lane present present his testimony the way you've suggested. However, I'm not in agreement with you. The one point I want to make clear, we do not know the questions that you are asking myself or Marina or the other witnesses, and I contend that you cannot ask them the pertinent questions because you don't know what I know and what Mr. Lane knows, and so you will still have an analysis in the long run, a conclusion. Going back to Marina, as I say, Marina made her statements. Warren says, on that particular thing, may I say this? It is true that we don't know how to examine you at the present time because we don't know what you have to present to this commission, but we are affording you the opportunity before we speak to ask any questions to tell your story in your own way. Then we should know what questions we want to ask of you. Ms. Oswald says, yes, sir, I understand that thoroughly, but I'm a human being going through my life story from child, and I may forget some things that my counsel would know. And that, what a statement here. But I am a human being going through my life story from childhood, and I might forget some things that my counsel would. How the fuck would her counsel know shit from her childhood that she doesn't know? You see, this is not the real Marguerite. This is the Marguerite imposter. And that applies to witnesses. They may forget to testify something that my counsel has facts on. I will have to accept your verdict, but I don't do it graciously. I want that for record. Yes, well, that's all right, Mrs. Oswald. You may state that for the record. I have documents, and I would like to ask, please. I will not leave any documents out of my hand. I carry them with me wherever I go. Even Mr. Doyle has been told that the documents stay with me. I have had documents stolen from me. I have had newspaper clippings stolen from me in my house by the Secret Service. I make the statement perfectly plain, and so the documents stay with me. Now, these are originals. I want, and you will want, copies of every original I have, and I'll be more than happy to let you have them. However, I want to be present when these copies are made and the original returned to me. I will under no circumstances let anyone have my originals for an hour or two and then return them to me. Am I making myself clear? I would like to request that, please. We will accommodate you in that respect. Then I have one other stipulation or request. When I tell my story, I will be including people in my story that possibly you don't know of. I request that I have the privilege, through you, of course, to subpoena these people that are in connection with the story that I tell, if you do not have the names already. And I feel sure that I have some information that you don't know about, and there are some people involved. I also request that after my testimony, that Marina Oswald will be subpoenaed, not subpoenaed, but will then testify again if you see fit. And I believe that I have the contrary testimony to her testimony that would make it necessary for her to be recalled. I ask that be granted. Well, Mrs. Oswald, of course, you have no power of subpoena, but we have no power to give you a power of subpoena. But you may be sure that if your evidence produces anything that's critical of this investigation, that we will pursue it to the end in order to determine the weight of the testimony for our final report. You may be sure of that. I appreciate that. But as to how we do it or when we do it, you will just have to leave that to the commission. You will give me the assurance that the people I name, regardless of title, I am liable to name some very important people. No, we cannot give you any assurances because we don't know. I see no reason then for my testimony. Well, Mrs. Oswald, you cannot commit us to subpoenaing anybody. We don't know. You're talking to us. We are in the dark. You cannot commit this commission to doing something that might be improper. It might not even be helpful in any way, shape, or form. The commission will be reasonable in every respect. We have no desire to protect anyone. We have no desire to injure you or anyone else in this matter. And certainly you ought to have some confidence in a commission that is appointed by the president and not try to tie our hands in a way that would be contrary to the manner in which the commission normally proceeded. Now, Mr. Warren, you made a statement that you in no way, I cannot quote your words, intimidate me. But you did not include my son. My son is being accused of the murder of President Kennedy, and I think that my son should be considered in this. He is dead, but we can show cause that my son is not the assassin of President Kennedy. And so I would like my son, he is the main object of the Presidential Commission, is he not, sir? No, he is not, Mrs. Oswald. The purpose of this commission is to determine what facts are in the assassination of President Kennedy. It is not an accusation against your son. There was an accusation against your son in the Texas courts. That's an entirely different proceeding. We are here to do justice and be fair to everyone concerned in this matter, and I assure you that this is our main and our only purpose in serving on this commission. None of us cherish this responsibility. I am sure, sir, and the only satisfaction we can derive from it is to be fair to all concerned, and I assure you that is our objective in this matter. I do not mean to imply that this commission will not be fair. I know about the men of the commission, and they are all very fine men, including yourself, Chief Justice Warren. If I've implied that, I will now and say I do not imply, but I do state a fact that I do not think that you can come to a true conclusion. I want that for the record. Now I'm going to produce, and this will be a fact, and this is on the basis. Now we have finished the three things that you're talking about. Are we going into your testimony? This is in connection with this, Chief Justice, and I think it very important to present a picture. And then if you allow me these few minutes, I will be through. Is that satisfactory, sir? Yes, go right ahead. Now, I believe you mentioned that you would not have the power or give me the power to subpoena them, but if I could produce the facts in my story, then I believe we should have these people called. Now, here's an article in the Washington paper, and the date happens to be torn off, but I can get it, that Senator John G. Tower had made, and I have outlined here. I wonder, Mrs. Oswald, before we get into any details of this kind, let's settle the situation as to whether the commission will say to you now that it will subpoena anyone you ask. I must say to you that you cannot put the burden on the commission. The commission will have to exercise its own discretion as to who it subpoenas. Mr. Doyle then says, Mr. Chief Justice, may I say something? I was wondering if whether or not what Mrs. Oswald is addressing respectfully to the commission is her confidence that if in the course of her own testimony and the actual facts she's producing, she expresses confidence that if those facts recommend the subpoena of additional witnesses or the recall of others, she expresses her confidence that would be done if the facts she outlined so require. She may be very sure of that, as I tried to tell her. But the one thing I would not want Mrs. Oswald to leave here and say, I gave the commission a list of witnesses and they did not call all of them. Now, that's a matter of that we will have to discuss will have to be in the province of the commission and not the province of a witness. And I say that without any combative and not in a combative spirit, because as your counsel states, I think we're not far apart on it, Mrs. Oswald. No, and I appreciate that fact. But fairness will have to judge our actions, and we propose to be fair. Now, I guess I am a very stubborn person. I am a very aggressive person, as you know by now. I would like, this would just be 2 minutes, and it would bring a point, and then I would be through, if I may. Very well. Senator Tower has dates here, and the main part of this article is that he had received a letter from the State Department. Now, I have information from the State Department. I have documents from the State Department, which is contrary to the dates and contrary to Senator Tower's public statement. And I would like to have the letter that is from the State Department and the name of the man that wrote it, because it's contrary to what I have. He could have, to use an American slang, shooting off his mouth because he said if he went to Russia, let him stay there. I would not help him, is what he said. But then again, he may have this very important letter from this man in the State Department, which is incorrect from what I have. Now, he claims, and if you would like to read that, and that is what I was trying to bring out, I think you will have to leave that to the wisdom of the commission and its sense of fair play and what is necessary, all facts considered. Well, I have to say, gentlemen, and I will most graciously continue. However, I'm not too happy that I will not have counsel for my son, because I believe my son would also be entitled to counsel. Very well. You may continue. Now I will start. Mrs. Oswald, may I introduce Congressman Ford, also a member of the commission. Now, Mrs. Oswald, Mr. Lee Rankin will be in charge of the hearing from this point on. He is our general counsel, as you know. Yes. Ms. Oswald, will you proceed to produce the papers and tell us about them, and then I will ask the commission after we get them to permit us to substitute copies. In accordance with our request, we will let you be present at the time we make photostats. You may start to tell your story in your own way. I have 3 different stories. I understand from Mr. Rankin's letter that my life is to be told from the very start, and so is Lee's life from the very start. So which will I start first? I believe it would be easier for me and more of a benefit to the council if I would continue with one life, the whole story, and then continue with whichever you would suggest I do it. If you could start out and tell us within the period that Lee Oswald returned from the Soviet Union on, whatever you know about it in your own way, and then we will get back to other matters later. Is that all right? Yes, sir. Anything is just fine. I'm willing to help in any way possible. I wanted to state it clearly in the beginning. I received a speed letter from the State Department stating Lee would leave Moscow and how he would leave and arrive in New York on June 13th, 1962. I was on a case in Crowell, Texas. I'm a practical nurse, and I was taking care of a very elderly woman whose daughter lived in Fort Worth, Texas. What the fuck is a practical nurse, and how is that different from a registered nurse? So I was not able to leave and meet Lee. Robert, his brother, met him, and Lee went to Robert's home. Approximately about a week later, I could not stand it anymore. I called the daughter and had her come to take care of her mother and took 3 days off and went to Fort Worth to see Lee and Marina. Marina's a beautiful girl. And I said to Lee, Marina, she doesn't look Russian. She's beautiful. He said, of course not. That's why I married her, because she looks like an American girl. I asked her where she had met her, and she said he'd met her, and he said he met her at the social function, a community function. I said, you know, Lee, I'm getting ready. I was getting ready to write a book on your so-called defection. I had researched it and came to Washington in 1961, and by the way, asked to see President Kennedy because I had a lot of extenuating circumstances at the time of the defection. He said, Mother, you're not going to write a book. I said, Lee, don't tell me what to do. I cannot write the book now because, honey, you're alive and back. But at the time, I had no way of knowing whether my son was living or dead, and I planned to write a book. But don't tell me what to do. It has nothing to do with you and Marina. It's my life because of your defection. He said, Mother, I tell you, you are not writing a book. They could kill her and her family. That was in the presence of my son Robert Oswald and his wife. Can you tell us about what date that was? Let's see. Lee arrived in New York on June 13th, and now I have a letter stating from Lee that he's arriving in New York on June 13th. However, the plan's to go to Washington for a day or two. So I have no way of knowing. He plans to go to Washington for a day or two. That's fascinating. Lee arrived in New York June 13th, and now I have a letter stating from Lee that he is arriving in New York on June 13th. However, he plans to go to Washington for a day or two. Why the hell would Lee Oswald go to Washington for a day or two? Why? So I have no way of knowing, Mr. Rankin, whether he came straight from New York to my son's home or if he stayed in New York and came to Washington for a few days. But I have the letter stating that. But I have no way of knowing. Was this conversation within about a week of the time he came back? Yes, approximately. That's correct. So I stayed in Fort Worth 2 or 3 days. I did not live at Robert's home. I rented a motel. In fact, the lady of the mother I was taking care of paid my motel expenses while I was in Fort Worth because I went there every day. While I was there, Marina is a pharmacist. I have a medical book, and Lee was saying that he was losing his hair and how he'd become bald because of the cold weather in Texas. That's hilarious. So I got the medical book, looking up baldness and the treatment for baldness, and Marina came by and she read the prescriptions. So I said, Lee, she reads English. And he said, Mother, that is Latin, of course. That is universal. So because it was a medical conversation, Lee said she had an operation while in the Soviet Union. Lee said he had an operation while in the Soviet Union on his throat. What? So because it was a medical conversation, Lee said he had an operation while in the Soviet Union. Okay, Diana Thomas, do you know anything about this operation that Lee had in the Soviet Union on his throat? Never heard of this before. I'm sorry, but all the confusion of myself being there and the daughter-in-law, the Russian girl, that was never gone into. That's all I know. But that was also said in the presence of my son Robert, that he had an operation on his throat while in the Soviet Union. Did he say when that was? No, sir. That was all that was said. As I say, with all the confusion of Marina, we were so thrilled with Marina and the children and all, there was quite a bit of confusion. Now I left. I went back to Crowell on my job. While I was in Robert's home, Lee immediately was out job hunting, and I felt very bad about that because he had come 10,000 miles by ship, by plane, and by train, which was an awfully hard trip with a young baby, and I thought he should have at least a week or two before he would look for work. But I wanted you to know that immediately Lee was out looking for work, and this time that Lee had gone to the public stenographer, made a statement that he was writing a book. You probably have that information. It was highly publicized. I myself gave him the $10 that he gave the public stenographer. I bought Marina clothes and brought clothes to her while at my daughter-in-law's house. Bought diapers for the baby, and Marina had more clothes when she arrived in the States than I have now. So what I'm trying to state is that as we go further into the story, it's been stated that my son neglected Marina and that she didn't have any clothes. The Russian people have stated that all throughout Texas in the papers, and that is not true. I happen to know because I myself bought Marina 3 dresses, and my daughter-in-law bought 3 dresses, and my daughter-in-law's sister, which I would like to have as a witness, bought clothes for Marina. So there is conflicting testimony. Hold on a second. I'm confused. Let me reread this. So what I'm trying to state is as we go further into the story, it has been stated that my son neglected Marina and that she didn't have any clothes. The Russian people have stated that all throughout Texas in the papers, meaning probably the white Russians, right? And that is not true. I happen to know because I myself bought Marina 3 dresses. My daughter-in-law bought 3 dresses. That's Robert's wife. And my daughter-in-law's sister, so Vada's sister, which I would like to have as a witness, bought clothes for Marina. So all kinds of people bought clothes for Marina. So there is a conflicting testimony. What daughter-in-law is that? Robert's wife. And Robert's wife's sister, who's a school teacher, bought clothes for Marina. Is she married? No, she's a school teacher. She's single. So that story there is incorrect. So then I went back to Crowell, Texas, and I was not satisfied in my mind because of the way they lived. They only had a 2-bedroom house. As you know, Robert has 2 children, and there was another couple with another child. So Lee immediately began looking for work. Okay, so the another couple, that's Lee and his wife. So I decided that I would quit this job and help the children all I could. So I did. I gave notice. I came to Fort Worth, and I rented an apartment at the Rotary Apartments, which is on West 7th and Summit. And Lee and Marina then came to live with me. What address is this? Is that the address on 6th? I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look this one up. See, here's the thing. I've been putting off Oswald in Russia and Oswald's return from the Soviet Union for future books. I got to wrap up this Harvey and Lee stuff, but I don't know if I can anytime soon because I have potential things in the works. So I have been avoiding Russia, and I probably really shouldn't do that. So a lot of this stuff I've been kind of like intentionally not looking into. How long do they stay at Roberts? They stayed at Roberts approximately 2 or 3 weeks, sir. So then they came to live with me. While there, I said to Lee, I'm ahead of my story. Lee and Marina had sent me wonderful gifts, and I have the gifts from Russia. A box of tea, very fine tea, a Russian scarf, pure linen napkins, embroidered with my initials, a box of candy for Christmas that has a Russian Santa Claus on it. I said to Lee, I want to know one thing. Why is it you decided to return back to the United States when you had a job in Russia? And as far as I know, you seem pretty well off because of the gifts you've sent. And you married a Russian girl. She would be better off in her homeland than here. I want to know. He said, Mother, not even Marina knows why I've returned to the United States. And that is all the information I ever got out of my son. Not even Marina knows why I have returned to the United States. That's a quote. Wow. How'd you get along when you were together with your Marina and your son? Well, that was a very happy month, Mr. Rankin. Marina was very happy. She had the best home, I believe, that she had ever had. And Lee, I was taking Lee out to work every morning looking for work through the Unemployment Commission and the ads in the paper, and I was taking care of the baby and doing the cooking, and Marina was helping clean up, and she would wash the dishes. And Lee and Marina would go for long walks every afternoon, and I would take care of the baby. Marina would sing around the house and watch the television and comment on different programs she had seen in Russia. She knew there was a picture with Gregory Peck, and she said, Mama, I know Gregory Peck. And she was singing Santa Lucia. And here we go. Here again in my stupidity, I said to Lee, she knows English. She's singing Santa Lucia. He said, Mother, that's an international song. Marina was very happy, and I was very happy to have the children, and Lee desperately looked for work. He was offered several good jobs from the State Employment Office of Texas. One in particular, I remember he said that he regretted not getting the job, but they told him because his wife was not an American citizen that they would not be able to hire him. He met obstacles all the way. This one particular woman in the Texas Employment Commission took an interest in Lee and went out all the way to give Lee clues for jobs, and I myself took Lee job hunting every day. And it is through the employment office that he became employed 3 weeks later, after he was in my home by the Leslie Manufacturing Company in Fort Worth, which is a sheet metal place. Now, while Marina was living with you there and your son and the little baby, June, did you talk to Marina and did she speak English to you? Yeah, she spoke English, Mr. Rankin, like she would say, and we used to use the dictionary when she didn't understand. I would say, Marina, you now nurse your baby. Yes, Mama, the time. Or no time. With motions, no time, Mama. She spoke English. What I would like to find out for the commission, if we can, in regards to speaking English, did you think she was able to talk English fluently, or did you think she was in the process of learning it? She was in the process of learning, but she understood more than she could talk. And I have a letter from Lee stating that Marina also speaks and understands French that she had learned at grammar school. Did you know French? No, sir. So you could not tell. I could not tell. And I didn't think a thing of it. And of course, Marina and Lee spoke Russian all the time, even in front of me. And you asked about this. It was a very happy time. They would sit at the table. They were playing a game. And I said, Lee, what is it you're doing? Because they were always talking in Russian. Mother, we are playing a game which is similar to American tic-tac-toe, and they also taught each other. They had books. They are children, very intelligent and studious. Lee was teaching Marina English, and Marina was teaching him some things, and he wanted to know about Russian in my home. Now, you were saying that he got this job at the Leslie Manufacturing Company. Yes, sir. And then his first pay, he kept his first pay. In the second pay, he rented the home on Mercedes Street, which is on the south side, approximately 10 blocks from where I lived in the Rotary apartment, and approximately 10 blocks from where he was to work. Lee had no car, and Lee walked to and from work, which helped him save money. Now, you must understand that this couple had no money and had nothing. I gave them some dishes and some silverware and just a few little things that I could help out with. But Lee did have the first week's pay and then the second week's pay. And he rented his home, which was $59.50 a month. It was a nice little one-bedroom furnished duplex in a nice neighborhood, convenient to his work. But then he leaves the boy broke. I bought food into the house. I never like to talk about other members of the family because to me that's speculation. But I know that Robert brought food also in the house, and they were not in the want. Marina nursed June. Now, it's been stated in the paper that the Russian friends have gone into the home, and they are talking about this home and found that they were in desperate straits. That there was no food in the house, no milk for the baby, and I say Marina nursed the baby. They may have walked into this house where maybe they didn't have at that particular time any milk in the box. Maybe Lee was going to bring some groceries home, but I know they were not in destitute circumstances in that respect. They had no money and didn't have anything. I brought groceries and I brought a roll of Scotch toweling. I had bought 2 packs and gave them one. And the next day when I went by, the Scotch toweling was in the kitchen on a coat hanger with a nail. And I think that is real nice. A young couple that doesn't have any money, but that they can use their imagination and put up the Scotch toweling using a coat hanger. They are just starting married life in a new country and they have no money. But here's the point. The Russian friends who were established and had cars and fine homes could not see this Russian girl without, and they are the ones that inferred. They're the ones that interfered, and they were not happy the way this Russian girl, within a short time, then this Russian girl had a playpen and a sewing machine, had a baby bed and a tailor tot, and this all came out in the paper that they supplied this to this girl because she was in need of these things. I say it is not necessary for a young couple to have a playpen for a baby. We have millions and millions of American couples in the United States that cannot afford playpens for children. I myself have been in that position, so I think those things were immaterial. The point I'm trying to bring out here is that these Russian friends have interfered in their lives and thought the Russian girl should have more than necessary. And my son could not supply these things at that particular time. He was just starting to work. This, to me, is a very strong mind that there are a lot of Russian friends that were made immediately and that have interfered and have publicly stated, a circle of friends, approximately 8 or 9, that would not give their names in the paper. They were interviewed by Mr. Tinsley of the Star-Telegram, that is Downley for every way possible. So these are the Russian friends who are established with cars and didn't think the Russian girl was getting a good break in America. Were there any differences between you and Lee Oswald or Marina when they were in your home? Did you have any quarrels? No, sir, none at all. Now, there was one thing I will point out to the character of my son and what I'm saying about the playpen and so on. Now, this was all done within a few weeks' time. They moved there. They left my home in July, and they moved there in August, and they moved to Dallas in October. So it was in this period of time that all these things were accumulated from Russian friends, and no man likes other people interfering in his way of living and giving all these things to his wife that he himself cannot supply. This is a human trait, I would say. Now I want to bring up this story. I could not afford to buy a bed for my grandchild because I have worked prior to this for nothing. The job I had quit, I was making $25 a week. Gentlemen, a 24-hour live-in job. The jobs prior to this, I worked for $10 a week, 7 days a week, a live-in job. Because of Lee's so-called defection and my accident, the way I was treated, left destitute without any medical or compensation, I decided to devote my life to humanity, and I became a practical nurse. Really, when the fuck did you do that? When the fuck did you become a practical nurse? Huh? I've got witnesses who saw you as a practical nurse in 1953. We all know you worked at department stores through at least 1960. So what the fuck is happening here? I want to see somebody show me any fucking records of any medical training that Marguerite Oswald ever had. Ever. So I had no money. I had $200 saved, and I came to Fort Worth, and that's when I rented the house with and bought the food with, and then that leaves me broke. So I gave up a job in order to help this girl. So to get back to the home, Mr. Rankin, we had no quarrels. This month was beautiful. Marina was very happy. I had the car and the television. We went around, and I say that we were free to come and go. They were free to come and go as they wanted. They would take long walks. If you're not familiar with Fort Worth, Texas, from the Rotary apartment to Leonard Brothers is approximately 3 miles. And they used to walk there, and they came home. Marina came home with can petticoat and some hose that Lee bought here with a few dollars that Robert and I had given to spend on his wife. So that was a very happy time. Now, when they lived in the home on Mercedes Street that he rented, I was employed as an OB, a nurse, in Fort Worth, Texas, at an OB salary. And that salary, gentlemen, will astonish you. I lived in $9 a day, 24 hours on duty. That was an OB case. I'm very busy with the baby all day long because people are coming in and out, giving presents and so on. I have a 10 o'clock feeding for the baby, and it's approximately 11 o'clock before I'm through and in bed. The baby is up again at 2 o'clock. It's approximately 3:30 before I am through again with the baby. The baby's up again at 5:30, and it approximately then my day starts, and I'm stressing to the point that I worked for $9 a day, all that, a $9 a day job. So that's 7 days a week, $63. This is the first time I've had a nurse's salary. I want you to understand. So with my first pay, I bought Marina clothes. I bought the baby clothes, and I brought food into the home. I went all out for Marina. I just love her and was thrilled to death with her. And I bought a high chair, and I could not afford a bed because I didn't have enough money to buy the bed. So that is why I bought the clothes and things of that sort. But I brought the baby a high chair. How did Marina treat you then? Fine, but then Marina was not satisfied with the things that I had brought her. As you see, the way I'm properly dressed, I don't say I mean to be the height of fashion, but I have, before becoming a nurse, I was in the business world, and so I have been a manager in the merchandise field. When the fuck did you become a nurse, bitch? When? When? And I bought her some shorts, and she wanted shorts like the Americans. She pictured America in her mind, evidently, and I bought her a little longer shorts. And I know, like Mama, I said, Marina, you're a married woman, and it's proper for you to have a little longer shorts than younger girls. No, Mama. And I will stress this, that Marina was never too happy. No, Mama. No nice. No, Mama. No this. That was perfectly all right. I thought she didn't understand our ways. I didn't feel badly about it. I'm going to get back to the high chair to give you a picture of my son. I bought the high chair and brought it over there, and Lee was not at home, and Marina didn't know what a high chair was, and she told me in Russian. I said, how do you feed babies in Russia? By this time, June was 4 or 5 months old, just getting ready to sit up. We put baby on lap, Mama, and baby eat on lap. And so a high chair, to me, I think, was new to Marina. So approximately 2 or 3 days later, I go over there, and Lee says to me, now, Mother, I want you to understand right here and now, I want you to stop giving her all these gifts to me and my wife. I want to give Marina whatever is necessary, the best I can do. I want you to keep your money and take care of yourself, because today or tomorrow you take sick and you spend all your money on us, and I will have to take care of you, which makes very good sense. But he strongly put me in my place about buying things for his wife, and that he could not buy himself. What did you say to that? I agreed with him, and I said the shock of it I realized by the mother-in-law. As a mother-in-law, I was interfering. And of course, that is part of what we mother-in-laws do unconsciously. We try to help our children, and in a way, we are interfering in their life. They would rather have their own way of doing things. And I realized that I had interfered, and the boy wanted to take care of his wife, so no more was said about that. I go into many homes being a nurse, and I see this problem also, where the mothers and mother-in-laws bring things, and the men strongly object to it, and they would rather do it without. They would rather do without and have their wife do without, and they themselves be the master of the home. So then I realized I was being a foolish mother-in-law, and that he was perfectly right. I should save my money and take care of myself. He had a wife and baby to take care of. If I didn't have any money, he might have to take care of me, so I agreed with that. Did Marina say anything about that? Well, no, Marina didn't know unless she understood the English part. I have no way of knowing, you see. All right, tell us what happened after that then. Now let me think just a minute. This gentleman is very emotional to me because it is a humanitarian side that I am trying to bring out. Material things are involved to me that are of no consequence. And I'm trying to point out the fact that these Russian people seem to think that the Russian girl should have material things. And all through my story, I can prove that these things happened of this nature. Yes, I will continue. I was on the OB case for very wealthy people. Who are these wealthy people? Who the fuck are the wealthy people who hired Mrs. Oswald? I then became a nurse, and by word of mouth, I had worked in the finest homes in Fort Worth at this salary. I have worked for the Ammon Carter Jr., who's the owner of the Star Telegram. I worked in his home. I have worked for Dr. Ross 7 weeks in his home. I've worked for Mayor Vandergriff. I took care of his baby in his home, and I can go on and on. So I have been employed in over 200 homes at this salary. 200 homes, really. So I know the difference of working in very poor homes, people on welfare that I worked in, and then working in the rich homes. So I have experience, gentlemen, is what I'm trying to say. So I mentioned to Mrs. Rosenthal that Lee and Marina didn't have a baby bed, and Lee didn't have work clothes, and that he had his suits from the United States yet with him when he went to Russia, but he needed work clothes since he got this job. She said, Mrs. Oswald, what build is he? And I told her, and he was about the same build as her husband, so she got out a lot of work clothes that her husband didn't want. However, she asked me for $10 for 12 pairs of used pants, and I would not buy it, give her the $12. Here's a very wealthy woman, and she knows the story, and she knows that I have no money. Yet she expects me to pay for this used clothing, and so I have this principle about me, and I did not buy the used clothing she had for Lee. Now, Lee's having a birthday, which is October 18th. This is approximately the 6th or 7th of October. Now, this Sunday, October 12th, I went. This is very important, gentlemen. I went to this home, and I was there. I asked to get off an hour or two to see the children from this OB case at the Rosenthals. I went to see my son and daughter-in-law, and they were nicely dressed. And while there, about 10 minutes, a young couple came into the home, approximately the same age as Marina and Lee. And they had a little boy who I would say was about 6 or 8 months older than June. The woman put the little boy in the playpen with June, and June went to touch him, and Marina got up and said, "Oh no, hurt baby." She spoke in English. So I said, "Do you speak Russian?" to this couple. And they said, "No, we don't. We are Americans. But my father," and I will have to say this, or grandfather, I do not know which, is a Russian from Siberia. And that is how we know Marina and Lee. Oh, so that is interesting. All right. This paragraph here. So she was working with these people named the Rosenthals, and she went to see his son and daughter-in-law, and they were nicely dressed. And while they were about 10 minutes, a young couple came in. So a young couple came in who knew Lee. Okay, not connected to the Rosenthals. I gotcha. That's probably the Gregorys. Well, I'll have to dig deep into them. They seem to be a little shady. So the conversation was general, and in the general conversation now, this couple was from Dallas visiting my family in Fort Worth. The conversation was general, and she said, "Lee, my father has this place of business in Dallas and will offer you a job." I said, "Lee, I didn't know you wanted to give up your job and work in Dallas because the Rosenthals that I'm working for, her father owns a meatpacking house in Dallas, and she has told me that he employs hundreds of people, and if every time you're in need to go see her father, that she would be sure to give a job to you." So, gentlemen, this was on a Sunday. I made coffee, and the house was in order. There was nothing packed. Lee got paid on Friday from the Leslie Sheet Metal Works. Monday, Lee and Marina packed their belongings and went to Dallas. The point I'm bringing is that Lee had no idea of quitting his job in Fort Worth because he was not packed. This was on a Sunday, and this couple offered a job in Dallas, and the father, their grandfather, was a Russian, and Lee went to Dallas on a Monday and worked for the Arts Graphic. I do not know, but you probably have that information, his very first job there. Okay, so the first job, that's going to be what? Jagerchild Stovall. So there's a connection here between Jagerchild Stovall and the people that Marguerite Oswald was working for. This is I don't understand this. I'm gonna have to stop and do some analysis of this last couple paragraphs because this is a little confusing here. But what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap it up for today, and we will pick this up next time. But her testimony here is quite interesting, and I think really needs to be dissected with a fine-tooth comb. So that's gonna wrap it up for me today, guys. I will be back. Hopefully in a couple days I can wrap up this audio book. Make sure to go to buymeacoffee.com/JFKbook and pick up your pre-order of the audio book. And that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thanks.